Hello, I am Anna Froling, a member of LWV Rochester. I would like to welcome all of you tonight, the candidates, the audience, and those viewing at a later time, to this forum sponsored by LWV Rochester. We'd also like to thank our generous partners of tonight's forum, the Rochester Post-Bulletin, Rochester Area of Commerce, and the Rochester Public Library. LWV is a volunteer organization active at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While we at the League do study and take stands on issues, we never endorse or oppose political parties or candidates. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of LWV Rochester or any partner or sponsor of this forum. And the sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. It is our purpose in sponsoring this forum to provide you with the opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face issues that are important to you. Tonight's questions have come from LWV Rochester, the Post-Bulletin, the Chamber of Commerce, and members of our audience. You are welcome to submit as many written questions for the candidates as you would like. Just hold up the cards as you finish them, and a League volunteer will collect them throughout the forum. If you are watching the live stream, you may email questions to lwvrochester@lwv.org. Tonight's volunteers who are managing the questions are also League volunteers. Questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Given our format, your questions must relate to all candidates. Questions that fall in the same general area may be consolidated to allow the moderator to cover as many topics as possible in the time allotted. We appreciate questions that are forward-looking rather than a review of past issues. If the answer was unclear to you, feel free to submit a follow-up question or ask the candidates after the forum. Cards become the property of LWV Rochester. As there is never enough time to cover all the issues in a limited time and setting such as this, please feel free to contact the candidates directly. If your questions are not addressed tonight, you can find the candidates' contact information online at vote411.org or the Minnesota Secretary of State site. We'd like to thank all candidates for running for office, for offering to serve their community, and for the enormous time, dedication, and commitment that running entails. We encourage our members as individuals, as we encourage each of you to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. Welcome to tonight's forum, which features the candidates for Olmsted County Commission, District 4. Candidates for the seat are Stephen Connolly, Brian Mueller, and Kendra Raymaker. Bill Perkle was unable to make it this evening. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to offer an opening statement. The candidates will then respond in turn to questions provided by LWV Rochester, this evening's partners, and by the audience. Candidates will have 1 minute each to answer. The candidates then will have 2 minutes each to make a closing statement. I would like to suggest to the candidates that you make your answers as succinct as possible. It isn't necessary to use the entire minute for your answer, but please finish your sentences when your time is up. We would like to cover as many questions as possible. Each candidate also will have a 3 30-second rebuttal cards. Only one rebuttal card may be used per question. Please put the card in the basket after you have used it. I would like to remind the audience to remain quiet during the forum, hold your applause until the end of the forum, and to turn off all electronic devices. The timekeepers tonight are LWV Rochester members Julie Gilkinson and Jan Strand. Questions will be screened by LWV Rochester members Amy Lynn Connors, Amy Cockett, and Kathy Magerling. Asking questions will be Randy Peterson from the Post-Bulletin and Jonathan Prohl from the Chamber of Commerce. Opening statements. We will now hear the opening statements from each candidate. Candidates will have 2 minutes to speak. So candidate Connolly will go first, followed by candidate Mueller, and then candidate Raymaker. So candidate Connolly, you may go ahead and give your opening statement.
You hear me? Okay. Yes, my name is Steve Connolly. I grew up in the Salem Township area, 6th generation family farm. I'm currently still involved in some farming, and I have a sports and entertainment marketing company that I've had since the year 2000, working with events in the Twin Cities, Metro primarily. Educational background is in natural resource management and public administration, political science. I've been working in conservation for over 30 years, 22 of which I've been an elected official on the County Soil and Water Conservation District Board. We're just down to the fair today at one of our booths, so I get to see a lot of folks. I've worked with every township and community in Olmsted County in an agricultural and conservation facet. I sit on 3 committees for the county currently: South Zumbo Watershed Planning Group, Root River Watershed, and Environmental Commission. I've been active in those 3. Volunteer work includes a volunteer at Seasons Hospice. I've done things with the Pheasants Forever group and Smile Network. I think what makes me a good candidate is because of my experience and my education, and I just think it makes me a good fit for the position. I'm still currently sitting on the Soil and Water Board for another 2 years. So I guess that's about it for my opening statement.
Candidate Mueller.
Hello, my name is Brian Mueller. I am a resident of Rochester Township. I lived in there over 30 years. My background is I've been a township supervisor for the past 18 years, so I have government experience. I'm self-employed heavy equipment mechanic for the past 29 years. Been married to my wife, Glenda, for 35 years. And her family farm is 5th generation. I do have a farm, so I do have a farming background. I guess I don't know what else to say. I'm looking for the county for promoting agriculture and the small town funding, keeping the infrastructure alive with that. So I guess that's about all I have to say.
And candidate Raymaker.
I'm Kendra Raymaker. In 2016, I was in the midst of getting my master's degree in public policy, and I was studying to try to understand policy issues, things that our entire country was experiencing, like a crisis in affordable childcare. Near the end of my study, I was so excited for the 2016 election. I remember watching the results come in with my husband. I was planning to wake up my 8-year-old daughter to tell her that for the first time ever, a woman had been elected president. And we all know how that story ended. But that setback and every single setback that women have experienced since then does not deter me from believing that women need to be sitting at every table where important policy decisions are made. I've been campaigning and reached out to the people I thought would know best what happens in the county, social workers. And when I talked to them about the role of county commissioner, they thought that county commissioners dealt with roads and land use. Interesting that the women who literally work in the county's area, that's the largest scope of the county budget, think that all county commissioners deal with is roads and land use. Is it possible that the people who have represented District 4 in the past mostly care about roads and land use? We are 2.5 years into a pandemic, and our care economy is in crisis. The time for county commissioners to think and talk about things well beyond the built environment is here. It's time to think of safety as more than just our sheriff's department, and realize that safety also comes from our children and our elders being taken care of. If they aren't, there is a huge impact to our workforce that will be forced out of the labor market, and that's bad for our county. I'm the candidate who is running because I am qualified and I have experience in public policy. I'm not running because I have spare time on my hands. I'm running because I'm qualified for the role and I can help.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will move on to questions. The first question comes from the League of Women Voters, and the order will be candidate Raymaker, candidate Mueller, and then candidate Connolly. And the question is, what new or old ways would you suggest for Olmsted County to partner with City of Rochester, surrounding townships, Southeast Minnesota counties, or even school districts to work on similar issues, similar clients, and save administrative resources? And we will start with candidate Raymaker.
So this seems like a fairly straightforward question of creating cross-functional commissions where people work together. What new ways or old ways? It's a pretty straightforward, like you just put cross-functional people on a commission and you have them work together.
Okay, thank you. Candidate, and now we move on to candidate Mueller.
I don't have a comment for that, I guess.
Okay, candidate Connolly.
I think with my past experience of working with the city of Rochester and also all of the townships, as I had mentioned prior, I think there's a lot of ways that we can combine resources, and we've seen it firsthand. I worked with City of Rochester Public Works. I think a good example is how the planning and zoning back from the days when it was county and Rochester were one in that department. I think they still continue to work well in that capacity. Our Soil and Water office is located in the same building as Public Works, so I think a lot of that good work is being done, and I would continue to do that as a commissioner.
Thank you. So we will now move on to our next question, which will be presented by Randy Peterson of the Post Bulletin, and the order of the answers, the responses will be candidate Mueller, candidate Connolly, and then followed by candidate Raymaker. And we'll start with candidate Mueller and Randy.
Okay. A recent Olmsted County survey indicates residents see affordable housing and taxes as their two highest concerns. Of these two, which do you see as the top priority to be addressed, and how would you seek to respond to it?
I'd have to believe that taxes would be the top issue. Yeah, I guess I don't have any, or I really don't have a comment for that, I guess. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We'll go on to candidate candidate Connolly.
I would say they're equally important. Being a landowner, I'm aware of property tax issues and some of my constituents that voice that when I'm out in the field with them in the soil and water capacity. I also recently addressed the Post Bulletin's questionnaire about affordable housing, and I think we have to work with land use planning and zoning with all of the communities where the affordable housing would be proposed. The line item budget, I would look at developments as a priority in that department, creating more property.
Thank you, candidate. Candidate Raymaker.
So I would choose to address affordable housing because I think that there are actually a lot of, while everybody is very concerned about taxes, the approach that I would take is I have a very clear way of determining what I think the county should and shouldn't get involved in. And I actually kind of have an inherent lack of trust in government. And so I don't think government should be in a lot of things. But when they should, I think that people support taxes and paying for things that are important to them. I think some of our problems with affordable housing are because we have not incentivized innovation inside our county. And I think that there's a lot that the county could do to use county programs, county funds to incentivize innovation, because building is too expensive. And supply chains are pulling building materials from too far away. That drives up the cost. We could look at ways to drive costs out of our supply chain and incentivize better building.
Thank you. And now we'll have a question from the Chamber of Commerce and Jonathan Kroll, and the order of the responses will be candidate Raymaker, candidate Mueller, and candidate Connolly. And Jonathan.
When thinking of a long-term strategy for the county, what do you view as a challenge or an opportunity for Olmsted County within the next 5 years?
So I think that one of the challenges in Olmsted County in the next 5 years really is the care economy. So access to elder care, access to keeping, people who are older in their homes and being able to care for them, having the workforce to care for them in their homes, having the workforce to, be able to do affordable child care, to be able to train affordable child care. So I think that really a long-term strategy will look much more deeply into health and human services, and we may need to, take a pause, or in some ways, we've done roads for a long time, so focusing on health and human services.
Thank you. And now we'll have, go ahead. Oh, were you going to, we've covered right? We covered. Oh, we started with Raymaker. Candidate Mueller, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I believe the county, actually, long-term, we need to do take care of the vulnerable adults, senior citizens, and at-risk youth, so they do not fall into homelessness. I believe home rehabilitation for low-income families, which would help neighbors and individuals, and that will be a process. That's not something that you can do overnight. And I believe going positive with people being able to get into homes is a plus, and being able to make this available to smaller towns, the money's available to smaller towns so they can also do with the HRAs. I believe that should be put in.
And I apologize, candidate Mueller, before. And go ahead, candidate Connolly.
Yeah, I would look at 5-year needs for the county. I've worked quite a bit, as I mentioned, with land use planning and zoning as this county continues to grow in population. There's a need to continue to have discussions, and which ties into affordable housing, as I mentioned. Let's see, water quality is a big issue for me, and all of the townships and all of the communities within the county, and transportation and safety, I think, is important. You're all probably aware of the activity has begun on the Valley High Road segment and the intersection of the old County Road 104, which is 44, and State Highway 14. Witnessed a lot of accidents on that, so they just recently closed that median on Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move on to audience questions. And the first audience question, the order of responses will be candidate Connolly, candidate Raymaker, and then candidate Mueller. And the question is, how will you support the sheriff's office to ensure deputies are trained and supported? Is completion of public safety training center, the public safety training center, key to meeting any new state law enforcement training mandates?
That was a really long question.
Okay.
Can you say it again?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. How will you support the sheriff's office to ensure deputies are trained and supported? And is completion of the Public Safety Training Center key to meeting any new state law enforcement training mandates? And if you want to focus on the first part, that's fine. And we will start with candidate Connolly.
That's a good question. As you may be aware, our District 4 is the largest geographical district, covering 10 townships and a little more, maybe even one of the other ones, there'll be 11 of them. See, we've got our sheriff in the building today. I don't know what our current staffing level is, but we had a lot of ground to cover in Olmsted County, so I would make that a priority to increase funding and training.
Thank you. And now we'll go to candidate Raymaker.
So my position on this would be, I believe that the sheriff probably has oversight to his own budget, and I don't know that I would get too far involved in that, perhaps not a need to micromanage at that level. However, I do support the need to make sure that we keep up with training. Does the sheriff's office need their own training center? I think I would want to look into that a little bit further to understand the facilities that are available in our community already, to understand if there are options there.
Thank you. And candidate Mueller.
Yes, I do believe that the sheriff does have the discretion of setting up the budget, which of course has to be approved by the commission. I believe he should be or have a free hand pretty much at what he needs to help law enforcement, because they kind of seem to be moving backwards. I believe a facility would be a possibility, because I would imagine a training facility would be also attended by surrounding cities and counties, law enforcement areas. I guess that's all I have.
Thank you. Yes. Did everybody get? Yep, you can go ahead, yes. And I have been failing to ask for rebuttals, so go ahead. And if either of you have a rebuttal, you can throw it up. So go ahead, candidate Raymaker.
So I'll just add, I don't know necessarily the difference, but when I was doing my program for Leadership Greater Rochester, we actually were at a training facility for public safety that may have been more so the Rochester Police Department, but I was in a training facility here in Rochester. So just wanted to say, that's the reason that I would want to look more into and understand more deeply, because I do think that we have facilities in the area.
Okay, any other rebuttals? And we'll go on to another audience questions. The next 4 or 5 will be audience. Clean energy. And the order will be candidate Mueller, candidate Connolly, and then candidate Raymaker. And what actions will you take to promote sustainable energy in Olmsted County, and how will you achieve that?
Well, I'd have to say, with my experience with equipment and larger vehicles, diesels and stuff like that, battery buses, it's going to evolve. There's not a doubt in my mind. The biggest problem we have is reliability with equipment. If you have equipment that's going to lay down, you're not saving anything. Like I say, it will eventually evolve to where we get more efficient engines and machines. And a lot of the newer vehicles are very efficient, and you can actually run them in a shop and not get gassed out, in my terms. I guess that's about all I have to say, but it's reliability is the biggest thing when it comes to machinery or any equipment that way.
Thank you. Candidate Connolly?
Well, probably traveling Country Club Road or County Road 34 daily back and forth to Byron. landscape has changed tremendously since I was growing up and going to school there. The solar power farms that are providing a heck of a lot of electricity for the city of Byron, I think that's a big wave of the future.
Thank you. Candidate Raymaker.
So specifically, I would look to the county to use some of our transportation funds to help incentivize more infrastructure for electric vehicles. I agree with incentivizing solar power. I think that both of those things, especially incentivizing more infrastructure for electric vehicles, has the ability to help people who are suffering under inflation to dramatically decrease their monthly expenditure on gas. And the infrastructure is already getting there, but in Olmsted County, it's not quite there yet. So I really support that. I know that the county commissioners have been working towards that, but that funds have not come from the state to support those efforts.
Thank you. And now another audience question, and the order will be candidate Raymaker, candidate Mueller, and then candidate Connolly. And the question is, according to an audience member, Olmsted County dedicated $3 to $5 million in American Rescue Plan dollars towards incentivizing better farming practices. How will you promote better practices for farming operations? And we'll start with candidate Raymaker.
I think a lot of that money could be used to support the work of nonprofits that already exist, like Land Stewardship Project and other nonprofits that are working in the community. I don't believe in getting the county directly involved in these kind of things. I think that we should utilize nonprofits and private businesses in terms of incentivizing better practices.
Thank you. Candidate Mueller.
Yeah, I believe with the money spent with the soil and water and for mainly erosion control and stuff with the farms and for farming practices, that is obviously county run, and I do believe it is acceptable.
Thank you. Candidate Connolly.
Yeah, all of our staff are county employees, so the county is already involved, and we manage hundreds of thousands of dollars that are both state grants from the Board of Water and Soil Resources, and our CS, Natural Resource Conservation Service. We're constantly promoting cover crops is huge right now. It keep the soil in place. It improves our water quality, and that it does provide financial incentive from federal and state government, as well as our staff time when we're out in the field assisting the farmers. No-till practices are big, and we think about 99% of our waterways and streams are protected with a 50-foot buffer. So I think the farmers are doing a heck of a good job out there.
Thank you, Candidate Connolly.
Thank you.
Next question is again from the audience, and the order will be candidate Connolly, candidate Raymaker, and then candidate Mueller. And it's on elections. What role do county commissioners have in ensuring safe and fair elections? And we'll start with candidate Connolly.
That almost implies that they're not safe and fair elections, I guess. Hopefully this go-around is. I guess I'm at a loss what more we can do that isn't already on the books.
Thank you. And candidate Raymaker.
So I think the role of the county commissioner, the county runs elections, so they have oversight into the staff that run the election board. So making sure that practices are safe and fair is within their purview. I think the additional role that they have is doing education and public relations and educating the public about how our election cycle runs. They can be the face of making sure that things are fair and that people really believe things are fair. They can be the people who are there for public outreach and answering questions and listening and making sure that if there are concerns that they funnel that back through the elections division and address those issues.
Thank you. And candidate Mueller.
Yes, I'm not aware of any voter fraud in Olmsted County or Minnesota. Voting laws are set by federal and state statutes which must be complied with. My experience as a township election judge taught me that checks and balances would keep the process accurate. If there are any issues, they are to be filed with the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you. And we're going to go with one more from the audience, and then we will go to League of Women Voters and we'll get the other sponsors. So the next question, the order will be candidate Mueller, candidate Connolly, and candidate Raymaker. And the question is, please share your ideas to boost small businesses in Olmsted County, especially or specifically around challenging applications. And we start with candidate Mueller.
And run that, the last part of that question by me again, please.
Please share your ideas to boost small businesses in Olmsted County, and also around challenging applications.
Yes, I just don't have a comment for that right now.
Okay, candidate Connolly.
I think what we can do to assist small business development is provide tax incentives by giving them a break. We all know that a lot of small businesses have been wounded a little bit with the COVID virus, and I guess that would be, one of my thoughts on how we can help a small businesses most.
Thank you. And then candidate Raymaker.
So I too am a little bit unclear about the last part of the question, but my ideas to boost small businesses in the county are really to try to form some public-private partnerships to understand, to better study and understand the barriers that especially women, minority-owned, veteran-owned, LGBTI-owned businesses face that are different, and how we remove those barriers. And that public-private relationship really comes with people like our banks really doing a better job with education about credit and understanding the process to become a business. And so I'm kind of guessing that the challenging the applications has something to do with the county regulating small business, and can we remove some of the barriers to the county challenging applications for small businesses.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll move on to a League of Women Voter question. And the order will be candidate Raymaker, candidate Mueller, and then candidate Connolly. And the question is, Olmsted County has a proud tradition as one of the earliest adopters of the community corrections model of probation. What level of funding do you support for these programs? And we will start with candidate Raymaker.
So this is one that I don't have deep experience with, but community correction, I would lean on staff to help me understand what that model is. And I have a background in human rights and a lot of social justice issues. So once I started to understand if that is a leading practice, I mean, we may be proud of it, but is it working? I mean, are there metrics behind us as a community having less disparities. We may be proud of our model, but I would want to understand if our model truly is working and if we should support it with funding.
Thank you. Candidate Mueller?
I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay. Candidate Connolly?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yep. And I have to find it, and I will find it in just a second. Here it is.
Trying to lean into you, my hearing isn't all that great.
No, and thank you for asking for repeat. Olmsted County has a proud tradition as one of the earliest adopters of the community corrections model of probation. What level of funding do you support for these programs? So it's community corrections model of probation.
Not having a lot of experience in that area, I guess I would rely on what I've done as a current elected official, as I rely on staff, rely on input and learning curve with my fellow elected officials, and I guess first and foremost looking to my constituents for input.
Thank you. And now we move on to a question from the Post Bulletin, Randy Peterson, and the order will be Candidate Connolly, Candidate Mueller, and then Candidate Raymaker.
The intersection of Highway 14 and County Road 44 has already been brought up, but current commissioners have voiced support for paying for half of the cost of constructing a new interchange at the site. With an estimated $45 million cost for the project, is it something you would also support?
It is my understanding that it didn't get, the funding didn't come through from the state level here a couple months ago. So I think the county has worked on that stretch and that 19th Street that comes into there. I think we're going in the right step in that direction, and they're already very active on it. So yes, I would support any applicable funding, because that is a dangerous road.
Thanks. And Candidate Mueller.
I would definitely promote for the funding for that bridge access across Highway 14 there, with the north part of Rochester growing as it is. County 44 is going to expand, and putting it off is just going to get more expensive. It's down to just right turns right now down there, so you can't actually cross the highway. And it's, for some of us in that area, that it makes it difficult for bigger vehicles to get around in there. So, but like I say, Rochester is expanding, and it's going to have to expand. The highway's going to have to expand with it.
Candidate Connolly. Oh, Raymaker. I'm sorry. Candidate Raymaker.
So public roads is probably the area that I have the least experience in. So I would definitely ask a lot of questions and really be looking for metrics, because I think we spend a lot of money on roads, and the budget that we have at the county level is for both roads and transportation. And I don't know that we commit enough dollars to the transportation aspect versus the roads. And there are a lot of people in the county that don't have access to cars. So what about public transportation? How can the county reach people who haven't had as much access to transportation for decades and decades and decades, where we have been funding transportation that supports cars? And I know a lot of people love their cars, but what about those people who need alternatives?
Thank you. Any rebuttals? And we'll move on to the question from the chamber, and Jonathan Kroll.
With
And I'm sorry, and I'm just going to give the order again. It'll be Candidate Raymaker, Candidate Mueller, and Candidate Connolly, and sorry for interrupting.
With numerous county commissioners retiring or opting not to run for re-election, how do you plan to leverage your experience and knowledge to foster a strong and successful county board?
So my experience professionally is kind of twofold. I've been a project manager and an operational manager and leader for over 20 years of my career. I get assigned the hardest strategic projects that are the most politically complicated. And so I plan to bring that experience to the county because everything having to do with the government is pretty complicated. Additionally, I have experience in human rights and social justice, so I plan to bring a lens that is very different, where we intentionally look at things like women's issues, something that hasn't actually been asked about yet tonight. Women are half of the voters, and there are issues that impact women disproportionately. So I plan to bring that lens. I plan to bring the lens of being able to talk about race and equity issues. So that's
Thank
what I
you.
would plan to bring.
Candidate Remaker. And Candidate Mueller.
Repeat that question, please.
With numerous county commissioners retiring or opting not to run for re-election, how do you plan to leverage your experience and knowledge to foster a strong and successful county board?
Well, with my experience with at Rochester Township levels as a supervisor, knowing how government actually works when you've got stuff coming down from the county or the state level, know how to deal with the constituents on anything from, which is a lot of infrastructure work, road maintenance, which is very important. I guess the experience in dealing with other government people is, hopefully we can make that mesh together. There will be a big learning curve because there will be so many new people on the board, that's for sure. So going to have to bear with it because government does move slow.
Candidate Connolly. Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, I tend to lead in my history with being an elected official. I look to staff to provide me with facts. I look to fellow board members for wisdom and past experience. And first and foremost, I look to my constituents for reality and applicability. 3 rules that I like to follow in my public and personal life is, I call them the 3 Ps: perseverance, because we all know that government doesn't always move at the pace we would like; passion, you need to engage all parties and issues with optimism; and pride, perform at an A1 level. Lastly, is leadership, which I believe I've demonstrated in many capacities with being elected and with the committees I mentioned I serve on.
Thank you. And now we will go back to audience questions. How would, in the order of the responses will be Candidate Mueller, Candidate Connolly, and then Candidate Raymaker. And how would you balance protecting our remaining natural areas and the development of land for housing or farming? And Candidate Mueller.
Well, a lot has to do with private property. If it's person's private property, they can essentially do what they need to. It's it's a shame to see green space go away. But with that being said, it comes down to property owners' rights.
Thank you. Candidate Connolly?
I would echo that. I've spoken quite a bit about land use and planning and zoning. I've also mentioned all the years I've been involved in conservation. I believe that you can have responsible growth while protecting natural resources.
Thank you. Candidate Raymaker?
I think it's really critical that we do balance all 3. I think that when we have supply chains that are really long and our food does not come from places that are close to us, we see what happened in the pandemic. So making sure that we have farmland available in our land use planning is really important and critical, and that's part of the oversight of county commissioners. I also think that we can intentionally design spaces to be more dense where people live, so that we can make space for public land that is used by all, private land that is used by farmers or residents, as well as having land that can be developed.
Thank you. One more question, and then I believe we'll move on to closing statements. This is a question from the audience, and it's social services. What initiatives or programs would you prioritize to address needs of our marginalized populations? And we will begin with candidate Raymaker, then candidate Mueller, followed by candidate Connolly.
What needs would we address?
What initiatives or programs would you prioritize to address the needs of our marginalized populations?
I think we have a great opportunity to do just that if we use the My Graham Park development the way we should use it. My Graham Park was purchased, and I'm not sure that the county had a great vision for that, but there are several nonprofits that are planning to put together a proposal, and those nonprofits serve our marginalized communities. They also have a plan for including incubator space in that use to help support small businesses that may be veteran-owned, LGBT, women-owned businesses to get their feet under them. And that is so critical. To help small businesses thrive in the county will mean that there's less pressure on county services because people can support themselves.
Thank you. Candidate Mueller.
Repeat the question again, please.
I found it. What initiatives or programs would you prioritize to address the needs of our marginalized populations?
Well, with my background, I actually have a brother-in-law that is serious or is handicapped, and the things I see with the vulnerable adults and the senior citizens make me worry that we need to put more money into the programs to help them, because they will end up homeless, and that's not the way to go. We need to keep moving with the handicap, in my opinion.
Thank you. And candidate, who's next? Candidate.
It's me.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, thank you. Candidate Connolly.
Yeah. Did you just mention the use of Graham Park, which will be one of our upcoming questions here for Friday? I think it'd be an excellent area to serve that sector of the county and city, to have it be family-friendly recreational use. I mean, that could include a lot of different things that would take the neighborhood and clearly planning and zoning and the county board. So I would, coming off of what you had said, support making that into a county in cooperation with possibly the City of Rochester Park and Recreation, that family-friendly park or facility.
Okay. Go ahead with rebuttal.
So I just want to clarify, while that may be a fine idea, what is being brought to the county or in terms of a proposal that I support is different than what that proposal is. That space is going to be proposed to use like a building that houses nonprofits to make it more accessible to the marginalized communities, to the support structures that serve those communities, as well as incubator space to help support small business.
Thank you, candidate Raymaker. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to our closing responses, closing statements, and the order will be candidate Raymaker, followed by candidate Mueller, and then candidate Connolly. And so I will now go ahead and have you make your closing statements and start with candidate Raymaker.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, the Post Bulletin, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the volunteers who made this possible tonight. I've really appreciated being in person with the other candidates and appreciate the opportunity to volunteer with you and to really show that there's a lot of interest and passion in serving our community. I would just close tonight by saying that you can find more about my policy positions in detail. I have a social media presence on Instagram and on Facebook. You can find me by just searching for my name or my website, which is www.raymaker4commissioner.com.
And candidate Mueller.
Yes, this has been my first experience with a forum, so this has obviously been interesting. It's nice to be able to meet Kendra, and I know I've met Steve. I guess if you have anything about what I stand for, my website is www.mueller4district4.com.
And thank you. And then candidate Connolly.
Yes, I guess in closing, I just want to stress my over 30 years of working in the public sector service. As I mentioned, I've been elected for 22 years. I mentioned my education in natural resource management and political science, public administration. I believe that makes me an ideal fit, and my ability to listen to the constituents, because we don't know it all and they see it where the boots hit the ground.
Thank you. So that ends our forum for County Commission seat District number 4, and I want to thank you. I would like to thank each of the candidates for participating in tonight's forum. Thank you for your service to the community and for your willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. Thank you. And I would like to remind you that the views expressed in the forum tonight were those of the candidates, not those of LWV Rochester or any partner or sponsor of the forum. Thank you all for coming tonight. Remember that, and thanks for our partners, the Rochester Area Chamber of Commerce, the Rochester Post-Bulletin, and the Rochester Public Library. Remember that primary day is Tuesday, August 9th, and that early voting has started. Visit 411.org to find your polling place. Remember, your polling place may have changed due to redistricting. You can see your sample ballot and learn more about the candidates. Each candidate has been asked to reply to a handful of questions. You can check out their responses at vote411.org. We have an election brochure here that will tell you more information, not only about the primary coming up August 9th, but also the general election August 8th and additional forums. And I think that if you want to watch this forum again, you can find a link on lwvrochester.org. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you, candidates.